pack this afternoon. I know this can be a snoozy slot after lunch, or maybe I'm just speaking for myself, but I think we're going to have some very lively talks that will keep us wide awake. And this one, I think, is a very timely and special talk we're about to have now. It's called A Festival of Democracy. And I'm delighted that we can welcome today S.Y. Quraishi, who's a senior civil servant, Indian civil servant, who rose to be the 17th Chief Election Commissioner of India. He served on the board of the International Institute of Democracy and Electoral Assistance in Stockholm for 9 years. And he's figured in the Indian Express list of the 100 most powerful Indians between 2011 and 2012. He's been a member of election observation missions in several countries, including South Africa, Kenya, Russia, Sri Lanka, Myanmar, and Pakistan. And he was appointed as the Global Ambassador of Democracy, along with the late Kofi Annan, in October 2018 by International IDEA. He's published numerous books, including India's Experiment with Democracy, The Life of a Nation Through Its Elections, and he's currently the Chancellor of IILM University, Gurgaon, India. We have a wonderful moderator today, Professor Louise Tillin, who's Professor of Politics at King's India Institute, King's College London, Khushwant Singh's alma mater. I was going to get that the wrong way around. And she has a forthcoming book called Making India Work, The Development of Welfare in a Multi-Level Democracy. So welcome both of you for a lively talk. You have 45 minutes, then I'll come back to open it for questions.
Thank you very much, Rachel, and thank you to Niloufar as well for inviting me to moderate this session. I'd say it's an absolute pleasure to be in discussion with Dr. S.Y. Quraishi today on what is, of course, the last day of voting in India's great marathon of Lok Sabha elections. There are few people, I think, who have done more to uphold the integrity of India's election machine, which really lies at the heart of its democratic endeavour, than Dr. Quraishi, India's former Chief Election Commissioner. And I think recognising, his standing, the International IDA, the International Institute for Democracy and Electoral Assistance, recognised Dr. Quraishi as a global ambassador for democracy. So I think Dr. Quraishi's contributions both to electoral democracy in India, but also to the worldwide practice of democracy, have been hugely consequential. And so this really is a great occasion to be talking to you as the Lok Sabha elections come to a close. I also thought I'd just begin by noting, as Dr. Quraishi does at the beginning of his new book, India's Experiment with Democracy, that he has really grown up with India's democracy, being born just a few months before partition. In fact, he's older than India's democracy. And so I should say first, happy 75th birthday for last year. But before we move on to discussing the book itself, I can't help but start our conversation with a question about the election process that's concluding today, with, of course, the results due on Tuesday. You'll see my nails are quite short. I don't usually bite my nails, but this does feel like a particularly nail-biting conclusion to what has been an absolutely mammoth election campaign, the longest in history in India. And I think it's become a bit of a cliche to talk about Lok Sabha elections as a festival or a carnival of democracy. This roadshow that must travel the length and breadth of India, from the southern tip, Kanyakumari, to Ladakh, from the densest, most heavily populated urban centres to the most sparsely populated, forested and mountainous areas, to islands off the mainland of India. And of course, this year, this election roadshow has also taken place amidst really unprecedented heat, reaching as high as 52 degrees Celsius in northern India this week, with reports of a number of polling staff themselves being hospitalised and even having died of heat-related conditions. So these are really challenging conditions in which to run an election. So The first question I had for you really was to ask, can you give us an insight into the sheer practicality of how you organise elections in this kind of a context?
Yeah. Thank you, Louise, and good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. The topic is Festival of Democracy, and I thought it will be befitting if I wear a red kurta, which I had brought from Delhi. But my daughter said, no, nothing doing, you are not going to wear that. So that is the state of our democracy. Now, today the last day of our election, 7-phase election, in about nearly 50-degree heat. So whether we can still call it a festival or not, but actually it is a festival. Now, many of you must have heard of a CEC called Mr. T.N. Session, who was a very, very tough guy, and who, through his various measures, made the presence of the Election Commission felt. Otherwise, the Election Commission was not taken seriously. It was treated as a department of Ministry of Law, and Mr. Session himself has said that he has seen a CEC sitting outside the law minister's room waiting to be seen. That was the background in which he came, and then he used all his power at his command, because the Constitution has made us totally independent. It's a question of using your backbone. You don't need any. Many times we are told that, do you need more power? Does model code need power? I said, nothing doing. Do you need contempt of power to be given to you because many people attack you? I said, we don't need all that. We have all the power. All we need is a backbone. Fortunately, my legs are very bad these days, but after 40 years of bureaucracy, my backbone is intact, and I'm very happy to tell you that. Now, many people don't like it. And the reason why lots of people started at this, the Festival of Democracy, I have written in my first book, this is the third of my trilogy. My first book, written 12 years ago, was called An Undocumented Wonder, The Making of the Great Indian Election, in which I described particularly the Festival of Democracy. Now, politicians and the media were very critical of Election Commission of India, and they used to say that you have killed the Festival of Democracy. Mr. Session, starting from Mr. Session. And what did we kill? There used to be violence on the poll day. 100 deaths in UP or Bihar was normal. Attacking on each other, disturbing each other's meeting, abusing, and very low turnout. That was the festival. He brought some discipline. There used to be cavalcades of the cars in the campaign, 1,000 cars, which will ruin the traffic for the rest of the day. And Election Commission said nothing doing, not more than 10 cars. Now, then lots of other things which we introduced, people would come and paint the walls of your house with their slogans, vote for me, vote for this party, vote for that party, and after the election you have to get it painted, spending thousands. They will forcibly come and plant their flag on your house, and if you resist, they'll beat you up. So this was the festival, which we ended. So lots of people were critical that you have killed the Festival of Democracy. In fact, there was one lady journalist, a very nice lady, a very good friend of mine, and who wrote an article in Hindustan Times on this piece that we have killed the festival. So I immediately wrote an article 2 days later. I said, Madam, if you're missing the Festival of Democracy, just send me your address. I'll send the festival home, to your home. And then don't cry, then don't blame us, because people will come and paint your house. There will be 24/7 blaring loudspeakers. There will be all kinds of noise and nuisance. So then don't blame us. I'm not naming the journalist because she's a friend. And now from a journalist, she has now become an MP. I'm not naming her. And she has become an MP in a party which has a woman prime minister. But I'm still not naming my friend. So, and her husband is a very good friend of mine, a very good anchor. So I can name him maybe. But then this is absolutely wrong. What we have done, we have brought in peace in the election. Now, no, though 100 murders on the poll day are history. Noise, if anybody is painting your house is impossible. They can't force and the flag on your house is totally banned. Not more than 10 cars can be taken in a convoy. You cannot use a loudspeaker after 5 p.m. or 10 p.m. in the campaign day and 5 p.m. before the silence period. And you can't use a loudspeaker in a moving car or outside a hospital or a school. Now, these people think that we killed the festival. Was that the festival? But when we did all this, the discipline which I mentioned, there were articles, there were editorials in the Hindu, in various papers, let EC Raj continue. They made the election so peaceful and turnout went up 30%, 40%, 20%. Now, turnout of people is the festival. The fact that these people started coming out, they felt safe enough to come and vote. That is the festival. That is something which those people who are critical need to realize. And not now it has become on the order of the day. And any violation is looked down upon. The second part, or should I take your question? Second part is about the magnitude. Not, we have often heard, I have heard 2 years into my election commission, what I had heard was India was one of the largest democracies. And I used to use the same expression, one of the largest. Now, there cannot be a bigger understatement because India is the largest by miles. You know, which is the second largest democracy? USA, which is 1/4 of India. And I remember seeing a movie by External Affairs Ministry, which was describing the size of Indian election. Imagine it's a big election. Imagine Germany, Italy, France, and Poland going together. I was very impressed. I am in the election commission. Very impressed. But then I got curious. I said, let me see actually how many countries. Then I realized all 50 countries of Europe put together are 60% of India. So all 54 countries of Africa put together are 65, 70% of India. So actually India is 90 countries rolled into one. And not just in terms of numbers. Nearly 1 billion voters exercised their franchise in the last 1.5 months. 1 billion. And therefore, and not just the size, the numbers, the complexities of these 90 countries are all rolled into one. We have some problem or the other in some part of the other. Now, while we are dealing with these big numbers, this is not only the biggest election in the world, this is the biggest management event of any kind in the world. But we are concerned and we are bothered about every single voter because every single vote can make the difference. In fact, I have mentioned in my earlier book, Undocumented Wonder, the story of a politician who was a Congress president in Rajasthan. He would have been chief minister if he had won the election. He lost by 1 vote. And when he was losing, he called up the returning officer requesting, can you please recount the postal ballots? Because we use machines, as we know, electronic voting machines. So there is no question of recount. Every time you press, it will show you the same result. So 500, 600 postal ballots. He said, all right. He counted in 20 minutes and he said, no change. Then he called up again, can you recount the total, the tabulation, which we do from the figures of the machine? He said, all right, another 20 minutes, same result. He thanked the RO and moved on. Now, interestingly, a side story here, his wife had not voted. So when I read about it, I was quite taken aback and I called him. Mr. P.C. Joshi is his name. So you can Google. I called him up and I said, Mr. Joshi, is that correct that your wife had not voted? He said, yes, it's true that that day my wife and daughter had gone to a temple which was very far and they could not come back. So I've mentioned in my book, I said, this gives me 3 lessons. 1, that every vote counts. 2, you can't take even your family for granted. 3, on the day of poll, the most important temple is the polling station, and which is something which politicians have not realized. So, and we have seen that many, you may remember Mr. Vajpayee, his government fell in 13 days by 1 vote. And the country had to go to poll once again. So how 1 vote can make a difference, which is why we emphasize that you vote. Which is the reason why For us, 100% success of election is the goal, 99.9 is our failure. Because that 0.01 or whatever it is means hundreds of polling stations, which means thousands of voters. Can we deny you your voting right? No way. 100% success is our target, and for which we are equipped. And finally, I'll finish on this. Since our concern is that no voter should be left out wherever he or she is, we have a polling station which is 1,200 kilometers from India's mainland and only 87 kilometers from Indonesia, Sumatra. And there also we have to give as good an election as in Connaught Place of New Delhi. No question about that. So, and we do it in the mountains, in desert, forest, wherever it takes. Highest polling station is around 16,000 feet. We need oxygen, but we have to do that. Therefore, if you will find this book to buy outside, but my best book is An Undocumented Wonder, The Making of the Great Indian Election, which is full of anecdotes and stories. This is published articles on controversial subjects, very good media and general knowledge, but that is the book. So I take a pause.
So I wanted to turn a little from the festival of democracy and this, much celebrated exercise of holding elections in this very challenging context, to something which I think has felt a little bit less festival-like in recent years, and certainly since you stood down as Chief Election Commissioner. And the talk has often been less celebratory about elections. Of course, we have the notion of democratic backsliding, but also, the sense that civil liberties have been curtailed, that the playing field for elections has become less free and fair. And one of the things that I think is particularly powerful in this book are a number of your writings after the 2019 elections, in which you've written quite powerfully that those elections were characterized by the overarching influence of money power, of hate speech, the communalization of politics, the abuse of social media, the unconstitutional conduct of politicians who openly flouted the model code of conduct. And of course, that model code of conduct, a set of really important behavioural guidelines for political parties and candidates which are intended to prevent hate speech or activities that may aggravate differences or create hatred between communities, whether communities of caste, religion or language. And I just wonder, in the current elections, I think we've arguably seen a further stepping up of hate speech, of allegations based on the distorted presentation of facts and of politicians pushing against the boundaries of that model code of conduct. Could I ask you, in your view, whether you think these elections have been free and fair?
By the way, the organizers, is this being live streamed? Is it being covered by the media, or is it Chatham House? Because I have two different answers. All right. All right. Louise, this book, of course, talks about 2019 elections because this was published about six months ago. There was no 2024 elections then. So obviously, the latest election was 2019, and it is described, and you have summed up very well in a few words what were the features and what was the characteristic of that election. After this election, I will only add one page. That please read my 2019 description and multiply it by 100. That's what it is, the freedom, the kind of hate speech which is going on, total violation of the model code day in and day out, spinelessness of the election commission. In fact, hundreds of times I have been asked by media from across the world to comment on the election commission. My reluctance is, although I'm in the best position to comment on them because I sat on that seat, I know the inside secrets, I know everything. At the same time, I feel it is awkward, morally, ethically awkward, to be commenting on your successes. So this dilemma keeps bothering me, and I don't know how to deal with this. So somehow I come out with some wishy-washy comments on the current election commission conduct, whereas I'm as much concerned as a citizen of India. And Plus, I'm more concerned because I also laid a few bricks in the construction of that magnificent building, the institution, the election commission that was, which was called Vish Guru. And you know, I had set up in 2011, Louise, an institution for training. As I told you, 100% good election is what we aim at, for which we have to give excellent training to our staff. And you know how much is our staff? 1.5 million people. Population, more than population of 60 countries, that is our staff, all government servants, whom you derisively call and describe as babus. Now the same babus come under the election commission on deputation, or our permanent staff is only 1,000. But these 15 million, sorry, not 1.5, 15 million people is our staff, and we have to train them to deliver what I call a zero-error election. Because with one error means hundreds of people are left out. And what the election commission will do, oh, there was some mistake somewhere, okay, we'll have a repoll. For instance, you must have heard on the YouTube that one child went to a polling station, child, 16-year-old, and he voted 8 times. And then election commission said, we'll have a repoll. Is that a great favor that you have done? In the repoll, about if 1,000 people had come and voted in the first time, in the second repoll in 3 days, 4 days later, 200, 300 will not be able to come back. Because they were all petty employees working here, there, somewhere, and they had come from distances to vote. Now, by a repoll, you may sound like you are compensating, but it is actually not, because you have denied voting rights, a fundamental right, to 300 people. So, therefore, we cannot take chances. In the first place, it has to be a good election, and which is why our emphasis was on training. This training institute, when I was setting up, the law ministry opposed in tooth and nail, because everybody opposes every new idea. And the law minister's argument is that Quraishi is building up this institute for his children. One of them was sitting here. So she complains, why did she not get any place there? Although I set up that institute, I went ahead, gone around, ignored him, got the money. What I did is a separate story documented by international idea, how institutions are built and what kind of problem they face. So I'm so happy to tell you the same institution, the law minister was opposing it, and our Prime Minister, Dr. Manmohan Singh, used to say, Quraishi, what you are doing is our soft power. Now, in 12 years, 108 countries have trained from us, and not students. The chief election commissioners of 108 countries, election commissioners and their top management. What better tribute and what better certificate can we have for the greatness of our election? Hillary Clinton called it the gold standard. In fact, in one my presentation, normally somehow I don't know why I did not use a PowerPoint, but it's all right. One picture, 2 pictures actually I like to show as a quiz. There are 2 people sitting very happily, chatting and laughing, and I ask people, can you guess one of them is a losing chief minister, the other is a winning chief minister? Can you guess who? They cannot. Then there is another picture where the same 2 guys are hugging each other happily. So same question. So they are not able to answer, and as they say, a picture says 1,000 words. These pictures say that our system is so trusted that the loser does not blame, like in Pakistan, like in USA. Donald Trump blamed the election commission before the results are out. So, and he says that if the results do not go in his favor, I will not accept it. It cannot happen in India. It has never. It's changeover of power, transition has been very, very smooth. And these guys are behaving like this because they trust the election system. They're not blaming. In fact, there was an article written by Shekhar Gupta. He says he was once traveling in Lahore and Nawaz Sharif was sitting next to him. And he says, I really am amazed by Indian election system and the transition of power. I remember how Rajiv Gandhi, when he lost, he offered the seat to VP Singh with folded hands. And he says, in my country, when Benazir is coming this way, I look this way and I go away. We don't even want to face each other. So that is the beauty, that is the transition. There are 2 other pictures in that presentation. 2014 election. Mr. Modi, the kind of speeches he gave those kind of speeches. And his rival was Dr. Manmohan Singh, a saintly Manmohan Singh, and you can imagine his mild and soft speeches. But in any case, after the election, same Mr. Modi went to Manmohan Singh's house with a bouquet, offered a bouquet, and then together when they are walking inside the house, such a moving picture. Okay, that is how the transition takes place in a civilized country, which US cannot call itself anymore. India is. Thank you.
I'm not going to ask you to comment more on the Election Commission or your successors, but I think let's turn the kind of the needle towards parties. And one of the subjects that you've written and spoken about passionately, including in this book, is the need to reform party financing in India. These elections, I was looking at these figures yesterday, these elections have been calculated to be the most expensive ever. 1.35 trillion rupees. $16 billion are estimated to have been spent by political parties in this election campaign alone. This is more than double what political parties spent in 2019. It's more than was spent in the last US presidential elections. It is an eye-watering amount of money. And this level of expenditure by political parties has lots of implications. For the types of people who run for office, you of course need a lot of money to contest and win an Indian election. This means that more and more elected politicians have a background in business. There's been a very close marrying of politics and business in India. But many elected politicians also have criminal records. By some estimates, a third of winning candidates had a criminal record in 2019. And the way that parties are financed has been a big issue over the last decade, not least because of the new electoral bonds scheme that was introduced by the BJP government in 2018. On the apparent premise that the electoral bond scheme would be a means of cracking down on illicit money in politics, but which critics, and including you, I think, have argued really increased the opaque nature of party financing and gave the ruling party an outsized advantage in this atmosphere. The anonymous nature of the electoral bond scheme was, of course, quashed by the Supreme Court just before the elections, which was very consequential, I think. And I want to take us on to some of the ideas that you have written about in the book and in your public writings about how political parties might be funded differently in India. One of the things that you've proposed is the idea of the introduction of state funding of political parties rather than private funding of political parties, which happens at the moment in India, but in many other democracies too. Can you tell us a bit more about that idea? Where does state funding of political parties work, and why, in your view, would it improve democracy in India?
Yeah. When I took over as the Chief Election Commissioner, after having been Election Commissioner for 4 years, in 2010, in my inaugural press conference, I gave myself 2 challenges. One was voter apathy, particularly of these so-called educated urban voters who never voted in their life but sit in their drawing rooms cursing the government. So it's a shame. It is a fashion statement for them to say, I've never voted in my life. As a communication man, I said, I'll convert it into a statement of shame and embarrassment, just wait and see. And I did some communication campaign, after which the same people who were twirling the moustache, I've never voted in my life, they were showing their marked finger, look, I voted, I'm not a pappu. By the way, when I say pappu, no political statement intended here. Pappu there was a very famous song, some of you, the Indians might know that there was a song, and the young lady would remember, Pappu can't dance sala. Do you remember how many of you have heard this song, Pappu? Quite a few. Now, that was the most popular song in that year. So, taking that, we made some parody thing, and we created our own Pappu, who is smarter than this movie Pappu, because he can dance very well. All he doesn't do is doesn't vote. So we had to lampoon him for not voting. So that lampooning worked, and in Delhi election, 14% increase in turnout after 20 days of campaign. And that is when the same guys who used to say, I've never voted in my life, they were showing their fingers as a proof that they are not pappus. So actually attitude can be attacked and can be changed. So that's how now the other challenge which I gave myself was to go after the money power. And I set up 2 new divisions which I had the power to, and as I said, we had all the power, we have all the power all the time, it's a question of using it. For 70 years, we had 3 joint secretaries. I created 3 more joint secretaries, not because I was fond of expanding bureaucracy, because I created 1 voter education division. And we did such wonderful work that first Bihar election 2010, the highest turnout in history. And we have been doing voter education, and every election the turnout is only increasing. Louise would have studied it. The second was coming on money power. So we set up the expenditure monitoring division. We got an income tax commissioner from the finance ministry to work out the rules. And we started coming down the raids on farmhouses, at hotels, and all these places. It started in that time. And we started catching money. There were, the DIG of police in a flag car, which policeman will dare to stop him? He used to carry money for the politicians. Chief ministers, they used to carry money in their helicopters, and we came down heavily on them. In fact, in that book which I have referred to twice already, if it was outside, I would have forced you to buy it, but it is still on eBay maybe. I have listed 40 modus operandi of abuse of money power. Now, those were the modus operandi we had discovered till then. There are many more. These guys are smarter. For instance, even a cup of tea is considered corruption, bribery. It is bribe, punishable under the Indian Penal Code. What the politicians used to do during this election period in the festival, some grandson's birthday, somebody's mundan, somebody's engagement ceremony, some wedding ceremony. So one of our observers saw a wedding happening with 4,000 audience, guests, liquor flowing, chicken flying, and he just walked in out of curiosity. And he thought, okay, once he has come to the party, he might as well greet the bride and bridegroom. Marriage party. There was no bride, there was no bridegroom. It was a fake marriage party. Immediately we got wise there. We went to all the hotels and the banquet halls, and we said, show us the bookings for the next 2 months, because we are going to keep an eye on all of them. Now, these guys are smarter than us. If we think we are smart, we are stupid. There are still bogus weddings. But now in that bogus wedding, there will be a rented bridegroom and a rented bride, with a printed invitation card as a proof that this is a genuine wedding. But we know, now they used to carry money in an ambulance. So we had a dilemma. If we stop in every week, there will be a news item that because of VIP movement, an ambulance was stopped for half an hour and the patient died. And there would be a hue and cry. If we start doing that and genuinely a patient is harmed, people won't spare us. Therefore, we said, all right, never stop an ambulance, just chase it to the hospital. Only after the patient has been taken out, then see what is there. So, and we used to find money. So, Lalu Prasad Yadav, chief minister, his helicopter was not checked. He was so scared. And he said, because if we had not checked, people would have been critical. He said, please, you have not checked my helicopter, come and check. That is the kind of standard we created for the first 2 months. After that, these guys are smarter. They started doing certain things. And I could see my greatest scheme was failing. Believe me, I had tears in my eyes in one of the meetings. And my colleague, Sampath, who was from Tamil Nadu, because Tamil Nadu was the biggest culprit there. So he said, okay, don't worry, we will succeed. And for 6 months, 8 months, we succeeded. But I'm very sorry to admit that this is the only unsolved problem of the Election Commission. Money power has gone from bad to worse. And I have often written in every book that the corruption in the election is the mother of all corruption in the country. Why? Because if you spend crores to win your election, then the day you become an MP or minister, you call your secretary, okay, look, I spent 5-10 crores and I have to now pay back to my debtors or creditor, whatever it is called. So please start getting money. So hafta, weekly, monthly, or the money starts coming in. So that is how the nexus between a politician and a bureaucracy begins, which is impossible to break. And that becomes the root cause of all corruption in the country. So, which is why money power in the elections is so critical, and we have to find a solution. And the figures, alarming figures that Louise you gave, really give us sleepless nights, because we do not have a foolproof answer. One of the easiest out of the 40 modus operandi which they have done, once the model code is conducted, we are the government of India. We have more power than the Prime Minister. But before that, we are powerless. After the election, we are powerless. So what these guys do, the money reaches the destination before election commission comes in. So what can you do? We know it anecdotally, but we cannot do it because the money has reached all the villages, the liquor, the gold or whatever has to go, it has already reached there. The modus operandi we came across in Tamil Nadu, in the morning newspaper, when you open, notes will flow out of it. So if you were buying one newspaper, you started buying 4 newspapers because they were all raining money for you. And they said it, the leader said it. Look, somebody questioned you are spending so many crores to people who may not even vote for you. He said, I don't care. But let them benefit. Maybe they change their mind and they start voting for me. That is the kind of model they had created. Unfortunately, we haven't, we keep on raiding every time we come out with, so many crores seized. It may please us and it may please some people, but that we are nowhere near solving the problem, and that is what is polluting. Now, finally, the answer, because this has been a matter of concern of all political parties for a good 20, 30 years. There have been many committees. I said that, and one suggestion comes that there should be funding of state funding of elections. I said the state funding of elections is no solution because it is all black money which we are fighting. White money we can catch. So what will happen is that even if we give some check of, say, £100,000, but all the black money will still flow, it will only go and supplement that. So we say, my solution has been state funding of political parties based on their performance. Now, this is one figure which cannot be fudged. And because I have given a formula. For every vote that you get, I give you 100 rupees. You get 5 votes, I give you 500 rupees. It is totally objective criteria. I cannot manufacture it. You cannot fudge your figures. And then, of course, people ask, hey, what about independence? I say, even if you have to give to independent, just for the sake of argument, he gets only 1 vote, we give him 100 rupees, he can go and buy his ice cream. But at least we are fair to everyone. So, state funding of political parties, what I have been advocating. And finally, in my last article, which I wrote in Indian Express, after the bonds were declared illegal, after 8 of my articles against the electoral bond from the beginning. The argument which they used to give, late Mr. Arun Jaitley, a very nice man, peace be on him, he was a very, very good man. So he said, okay, look, earlier the transaction used to be in cash. Now they have to buy a bond from a banking system, so the cash is eliminated. So, and then the bond is given to the party which deposits it, so it's all banking. I said, fair enough, if you are so much in love with the scheme, I have a 30-second solution, which I called it in that there is a title of an article, 30-second solution. I said, my 30-second solution is, just let me know who donated how many bonds to whom. Just tell us that. Bonding electoral bond is fine, transparency is missing. And what was their argument? The donor wants secrecy. Now, I have raised this question that same donors have been donating for 70 years. They never ask for secrecy. And they are businessmen, they are very clever. They give to every political party. There are 2 rivals, they give to both the rivals. Whosoever wins, they don't care. Whosoever wins is their man. So, in that case, suddenly how they started demanding secrecy. Because, if we give to one party, if the other party will harm us, will punish us, will be vengeful, they never were. So therefore, this is imaginary. Secondly, and I have my solution, which I have finally given and which is now for the first time has been talked about, that we create a national election fund. If I give it to a Congress party, the BJP will go after them. But if I give money to National Election Fund, who was offended? Nobody. And that National Election Fund will be operated by an independent organization, whether Election Commission or somebody else, and totally mathematically, when a clerk can do it, that if you got 100 votes, this is your money. If you got 5,000 votes, this is your money. Based on your performance, we will fund from the National Election Fund. Why will people vote to the election fund? There are 18 electoral trusts already found by various organizations, because businessmen do promote philanthropy. They will be happy to promote India's politics. And of course, there are very generous income tax rebates. So if you donate, you get 100% rebate, so there will be no dearth of money. And I have also given an alternative. If suppose people are stingy in paying, even 1 paisa per liter of petrol will give you so much of money that you can give generously to all the political parties.
Lots of ideas there. I'm very keen to open up to the audience. Can I have one final question, though, Rachel? Yeah. At the end of the book, you have a set of essays on secularism, and I can't help but end with a question about secularism, because, of course, this is a really central constitutional value in India, but one that has been under pressure in recent years. You talk very powerfully in the book and elsewhere about how hate speech and discrimination directed against minority communities, especially Muslims, has been one of the biggest challenges to the rule of law and a blemish on India's democratic conscience. And I was struck in the introduction to your book that you describe how you yourself were the first Muslim from Old Delhi to join the IAS, the Indian Administrative Service, with, I think, your sister following in your footsteps as well. I wanted just to ask you to reflect whether such opportunities remain open to young Indian Muslims today to play the kind of role that you have in India's public life.
Well, in my time, the general feeling was among the Muslims, a prejudice that, Muslims will be discriminated against. If they go for a job, they won't get a job, so why even waste your time in competing? That was the attitude, negative attitude, in which I competed. I was a nobody in my neighborhood. I competed, and when I made it, it inspired some people around me. Look, if this boy who is a nobody, if he can do it, why can't we? So we had to change that mind. Secondly, Muslims were the least educated of all communities for 5-6 decades. Only from 1992, the Babri Masjid thing, there was some awakening among the Muslims that the only future for them lies in education, and they started working on education. So their policies became progressive. There is a lot more education, there is a lot more prosperity, and also they had written another book on population myth. Muslims are adopting family planning faster than all communities. This is a part of a consciousness, new consciousness which is arisen, and now quite a few academies and universities are training minority students for civil services, and their number is increasing. Of course, it is nowhere like appeasement. 14% population getting to 3% or 2%, and people call it appeasement, which is the height of insincerity. But from 2 to 2.5% is also a positive progress, and which is what is happening. So we need not be disheartened. One question I've been asked by media in the recent past, and in one I had the guts to give a reply. They said, Prime Minister Modi, in every campaign speech, he's talking about the Muslims. How do you feel about it? I said, I feel very good. He was taken aback. He said, what do you mean? I said, look, normally people start his speeches invoking the name of God. He invokes the name of Muslims in every speeches. So he start with Muslims and end with Muslims. So I feel very elated, very honored, and flattered.
That feels a very harsh moment at which to interrupt the flow, because this has been so stupendous, and thank you, Louise, for your wonderful questions. And now I'm sure the audience have many questions that they want to ask one or both, indeed, of our speakers, please. Yeah.
On the EVM, can EVM be hacked?
Whose question is it? Please raise your hand. Okay.
Chan.
Yeah, I have said it hundreds of times on the media till yesterday. Even those BJP types who think I'm anti-BJP, I'm the biggest defender of EVM, and my word carries more credibility than the current CEC because I have no stakes. EVM is totally dependable because the kind of checks it has. Number one, the internal technical checks. And because it is one-time programmable read-only chip fused on the motherboard, you cannot write any other program on that. And secondly, after the machine is made in the factory, it is sent to the states. After that, which district, which constituency, which booth it will go to, even I don't know. Even the election commission doesn't know. It is randomly decided by the computer. Then there is no permanent button for Congress or BJP. They say, every time you press a button, the vote goes to BJP. Today I was seeing some interview of mine given some days ago. I said, look, there are 2 million machines. And what the media shows is 1 incident, 2 incidents of such this kind happening. So it's not that it is happening on a large scale. And my final, and the kind of security that we provide, which you should know because for the next 4 days, this is going to be the debate. What happens is on the day of the poll, when the polling is over, the machine has 2 technical buttons of a seal, and there is a 3rd seal outside the machine. That is a paper seal. That paper seal has a unique number like your currency notes in your pocket. And this seal is printed in our India's currency press in Nasik. And that seal is put around that machine. And the party agent sitting there is made to sign that slip. That paper is deliberately delicate because if you try to tinker, it will break and then you can't use the machine. So now, if you have signed that seal, so after the sealing process is done, and you know that in this machine, this is the number of the machine, and 850 votes have been cast. You are present, it is announced in the presence of everybody, and a certificate given to you. Then this machine leaves for some storehouse that we call a strong room. And our vehicle carries these machines, our paramilitary force follows it. And then we tell the agents, please, although we must trust our staff, but we don't, like you, please follow these machines to the strong house. So those private people, the political party agents in their cars, they go for 40 miles to the strong room. Now, let me describe the strong room to you. A strong room deliberately has only, even if it is this size hall, only 1 door. All others have been bricked. There is no window, there is no ventilator. And there are CCTV cameras inside, there are CCTV cameras outside, and there are video cameras inside and outside. And machines have been kept. All the political party agents are watching from inside, outside, and then we put a lock, a padlock on the room. And the padlock is then sealed by a paper cover. First, lac is put, a seal of lac is put, and that on that paper, the party agents sign. Now, this strong room is guarded by 3-tier security, paramilitary in the inner ring, state armed police second, district police in the third, and we encourage the party agent to sleep outside the strong room for the next 2 months. And they do. They do. We don't give them food, but we give them water and we give them toilet and fan, other facilities. So because they are our eyes and ears too. So we say, please keep an eye. We don't trust our people, just as you don't. You sit there. Now, after 2 months, tomorrow on the 4th of June, when the room will be opened, these agents will be there. First thing, we'll take a look, just see whether your signature is still there, whether the seal has been removed. No, the seal will be there. So after that, the room will be opened. Then the machines will be taken to the counting center. In the counting center, there is a table on which 14, one round is 14 tables. We will show, and there are people beyond a wire mesh. They can see it clearly, but they cannot grab anything. So we start showing them the machine. Okay, look, this is the machine. Can you recognize your signature on that paper? Yes, yes, it is. This is the number you have noted? Yes, it is. This machine had 852 votes. Do you remember? Yes, we have noted. Fine. Can we now start opening the machine? We open the machine, press the button, count. So the machine starts counting. There is a monitor on which it will say, and it is visible very clearly that my number is so-and-so. Everybody is cross-checking. I have 852 votes polled that day. Correct? Yes, correct. After that, the information the others did not have. It's a candidate 1, so many votes, candidate 2, candidate 3. There is no name, there is no party name. Candidate 1, 2, 3. And after that, this the result is announced round by round. After every table of 14, counting has been done, a result sheet is given to the party agent. They give a receipt. They say yes. Now 20 round election happening, and 19 rounds have gone very well. And after 20th, the margin being small, suddenly you say the election has been rigged. What was happening for the 19 round? You have been certifying it. And nation watches it before we in the election commission do, because it is real time. So therefore, finally, which is to my mind a conclusive proof. 4 or 5 months ago, there was an election in Karnataka, hotly contested. Prime Minister of India went there 34 times, and they lost so badly. If they say that so-and-so hai, to mumkin hai, yani if he is there, so everything is possible, that these people are very, very bright. If they could manipulate the machines, do you think they would have spared the machines? They lost so badly. In Karnataka, earlier in Bengal, recently in Himachal, Punjab, everywhere, they lose. Now, there are some smart Alex, some people, no, these guys are very smart. What they do is they will allow themselves to be defeated in 2-3 places so that the machine's credibility is established. If that was the case, will Modi go and campaign there 34 times? And rather, Modi's case will be better. I have not lost even Resident Welfare Association election in my life. Will he deliberately lose a major state in which he had such high stakes? So, if that was possible, do you think they would have spared Karnataka? Therefore, I personally feel you should trust EVM blindly, and after the VVPAT, with some improvements that are required, which is a matter of detail, but please trust EVM. And now there was a debate in the last 4 days that the figures have been increasing. I said, I don't care about what figures are increasing. The figures in the machine are the figures which matter to me. If there were 850 votes, and the machine is in triple security circles, it cannot be made for 853. Only a magician can do it, and PC Sarkar, I believe, has died. So who will do it from outside? I don't understand. So therefore, and I've been saying it in my interviews, that reassuring the nation, don't worry. If they could have been manipulated, no government would have lost. And by the way, finally, the machines being used right now are 213 vintage machines. Before the BJP, it was Manmohan Singh time machine. Manmohan Singh made these machines for BJP to win. Thank you.
Well, that was a very full answer. I mean, I'm very excited to hear PC Sarkar mentioned there, and now I've got a film version of this starting in my mind, but I can only take one more question, I'm afraid. So I'll take the one at the back, please.
Hello, Professor Divyen Shah. I'm a paediatrician. We talk about democracy. The thing that worries me, actually, when we go to India recently, is that the current situation seems to be that people are afraid to speak about politics, actually, within families. It's such a big divisive issue that even in our family WhatsApp groups, we get bombarded with all this rhetoric, whether it's, pro-BJP, anti-BJP, very divisive, and yet, people are afraid to talk. So although there's a democracy in terms of being able to cast our votes, the bit of democracy that worries me is the kind of free speech. At least in this country, it seems like we can shout all sorts of things about any parties a bit more openly. But when we go to India, I get the sense personally from our families that it's very hard to speak about these politics and these sorts of issues. Can you comment on that?
Yeah. The people are scared, no doubt. Many people are scared. But at the same time, these are all passing phases, according to me. After the partition of India, when millions were killed, after 10 years, Hindus, Muslims got together. And I have often said India is a secular country because Hindus are secular. It is now, India was divided in the name of religion. Republic of Pakistan, Islamic Republic of Pakistan. India could have easily become Hindu Republic of India, Bharat. It did not. Their Constituent Assembly, our Constituent Assembly, chose democracy when 94% of the members of the Assembly were Hindus. That is one. Secondly, in the same atmosphere which you see in Delhi, if you see the YouTube sitting here, you can hear the YouTube. 50 YouTube channels are abusing Modi left, right and center in the boldest possible terms, and all run by the Hindus. Basam Sharma, Misra, Vajpayee. So that is where the hope is, because the ethos of Hinduism is secular, and that will bounce back. There is resilience in democracy, but it keeps sliding in many various countries, but it bounces back. I have a feeling that this phenomenon is temporary.
Well, what a wonderful note to end on. An uplifting note. And the idea that the vote we're going to hear on Tuesday is going to be a fair one. Wonderful thoughts to take away. Thank you both very much, to Louise and to Mr. Quraishi. And let me just give you your goodie bags.